But I want to focus our discussion in on board meetings, best practices, who should come, those kinds of things. So if you have discussion around board meetings in particular, that's what this class is for. I'm going to basically do two things. I'm going to slowly take us through and talk as we go through what I think is the best way to run a board meeting. And then we're going to get to the end of that. It shouldn't take real long. And then we're going to talk about what you think I've missed, what you think should be included, or what you think should be done differently. So I'm going to say right up front that I'm a firm believer in a software to help keep your meetings organized. But I tried to keep this as open as possible to where you can take these principles and you don't necessarily need a particular software to make your meetings work. I recommend that technology helps. So however it works for you, I'm sure will be fine. But organization, preparation, and accountability are best tracked through something other than a person. A computer will hold you accountable like a person can. You know, when you were supposed to have it done, it'll just pop up and say, hey, you're supposed to have it done. And it's not like getting a phone call going, why isn't this done? It just says, please finish this. So, at this school, this is our meeting room. It's also the art room, which is why it looks like it does, but this is where we hold our board meetings. And so I want to just kind of run through a typical board meeting. I've kind of debated how to do this, but I'm going to actually, there's a lot of my board that's not here in this class today, so I'm just going to take some liberties without them. I was afraid that you were one of the boarders. So I'm going to take some liberties. And if you see something you shouldn't see, just don't look at it. Okay? Fair enough. So we use Bloom Growth, which is based on EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, and they have a whole system for meeting rhythms. So there's something that's important. Everyone hates meetings. They drag on, and there's jokes about it being a board meeting for a reason. It's a boring meeting. They don't like the amount of time it takes. There's all kinds of things that just make us frustrated about meetings. Don't ever get anything done. People don't show up on time. It runs late. We have all these complaints. So what I like about using a software is that if you look over here on the side, everybody can look at the screen. If you look over here at the side, there's time limits. And we have set a time limit for each one of the items that we expect to do. And it's this same agenda every week or every month. I use this in my business as well. So if you catch myself, bear with me. This software is designed for a weekly meeting with the team that's leading your organization. So one thing.
Just read those off. Some of us don't have eyes that can see that.
Okay.
Ernie, where are you casting from? It's
From.
awful blurry. It should be. That's fine. It should be better. I don't know. It's fine.
Just read it off.
It's normally clear.
Buying your glasses.
It's fine.
Okay, so let me make a few other comments to start with. And I'm saying this more for myself, but I am not a punctual person by nature. But one of the best ways to help a meeting go well is to have a set time that it starts and stick to it. If not everybody's there, start the meeting. Because if you start the meeting and you end the meeting, then it's more important that everyone's there on time. Obviously, there's always other circumstances, but I feel like the team is working well when I show up to a meeting 2 minutes late, it's already started. So the basic agenda of every meeting, here again, I'm going to go over what I'm used to, what we as a board do, and then at the end, you can tell me how this is wrong or what we missed, something we can do better. So check-in. Let me just read them. I have more to say on each one of these. Check-in, goals, metrics, headlines, to-dos, issues, and wrap up. That's the basic premise of each meeting. So check-up is the place. Oh, hang on. I'm going to start this meeting. And you can see here there's a timer that's going to help me stay on track. This is designed for a 90-minute meeting. We don't have 90 minutes here today, so we're going to speed through this. But and honestly, because our board meetings are once a month instead of weekly, in my business, you don't want to go past 90 minutes. You got to stop your meeting. In a board meeting, sometimes you're not going to be get together again for another month. Sometimes it takes a little more than 90 minutes to get everything done. But agree on when you're going to stop. And unless there's an issue that can't wait, it'll be there next month. Rome wasn't built in a day. You're not trying to solve the world's problems. You have the next 30 years to make this a good school. Don't try to fit it all into one night. So, in the check-in, because this is a Christian school, I like to start with some sort of inspiration for the teachers. At a bare minimum, you should start your meetings with a word of prayer so that you can invite God's presence into the meeting. This is, to me, Christian education. Christian education from an Anabaptist perspective is the way I like to frame what I'm doing. And it is very, very important. We are not just trying to educate children. We are actively trying to make disciples and to train people more than just in reading, writing, and arithmetic. So, let us start this meeting with a word of prayer. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and your blessings. Lord, there's a group here in this room that has meetings every month to make their school better. And I ask that you would teach us, give us some nuggets of truth that we can take back to our individual schools to make our schools better and more of a place that honors and glorifies you and that serves the parents, the students, and the teachers that we represent here. And we ask that your presence would be in this meeting. In Christ's name, amen. For the sake of time, I won't go into this, but I would highly recommend there's some sort of encouragement, inspiration for your teachers if you have them at this meeting. I'm a particular fan of having your teachers in the meeting at least some of the time. Sometimes as a board we have gotten a little bit lopsided and we've actually had most of our time the teachers were there and we just had very little executive session. And that can be another ditch that you can fall into because then you're just basically a problem-solving board. And you're not a goal setting and a direction setting. And if you have your teachers there, you're solving current issues. If your teachers aren't there, you should be solving long-term issues, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now problems. Along with this check-in, we're all friends, right? You see these people in this board meeting every month. And you're going to have, if you don't get the chit-chat out of the way, it's going to creep in the whole meeting long. So get the chit-chat out of the way. How are the dogs doing that just were born? I know this about you. I want to ask how they're doing. Or how's the rain affecting your work? Type of conversations. What happened to that thing we were talking about 2 weeks ago? Or last board meeting you said your dad was ailing. Any update on that? Like, get those things out. Talk about. You really should have one personal and one something that relates to school. Maybe an interesting story that your child brought home from school, something like that. But you want to make the meeting personal. It's not just about business. Get some of those things out of the way. Another, and I'll get to this a little bit later too. but you need to make sure. So researchers have done studies on what makes a dynamic and powerful team. What makes a team work? They put a bunch of smart people in a room and they said, maybe that's what it takes to make a good team. They put a bunch of dumb people in a room. Maybe put a balance of smart and dumb people. They put outgoing people in a room. They mixed it. They tried to figure out how can we make a dynamic team, a team that works every time. And the only thing that they found that makes a team work every time is when everyone participates. That is the measure of a good team. So go around the room in your check-in and ask each person to say something. Like everybody has to say something. You're gonna have some real quiet people. Dave's the real quiet one on our board. He doesn't say anything all meeting long. But he's got to say something. He has to participate. He's on the board. He has to. I'm over exaggerating. You say a lot, but he doesn't nearly talk as much as I do. I just run my mouth constantly. And left to my own devices, I'll the whole meeting long, I'm always talking and Dave never says anything. And so, especially in the check-in, everyone has to be quiet and everyone else has to talk. We need to make sure that everyone participates. Okay, so moving on. If you notice here, and I'm just pointing things out that I like I said, follow some system. You don't have to follow mine, but you notice how that 0 turned red. That means we're out of time. It was time to move on. The meeting's at 5 minutes. We set 5 minutes for this part. So it's red. Now we're into the goals, and we've got, and I believe that's going to count down too. This is a meeting we don't use anymore. Leland used to be on the board, and so that's why he's got things on here. And goals are for things that are going to take longer than 1 month. So you have a meeting. You should have a board meeting every month. How many of you have a board meeting every month? Do we all have one every month? Every 2 months? 3 months? Just whenever needed?
Every 10 weeks.
Every 10 weeks.
Since we was, I don't know,
Oh, that's interesting.
we might want to look at that sometime.
No, as long as it's regular, right? It's every 10 weeks. No, that's fine. So whenever your board meeting is, there are some projects, and again, this is built for a weekly meeting. There's a lot of things you can't get done in a week, like create a course syllabus for grades 9 through 12. You're not going to get that done in a week unless you spend every waking minute trying to work on that, pulling everything together. So this is for the school term. In business, it's a 90-day, it's a quarter, but this could be something that this school term we want to conquer. We want to get this done. By the time we end school, we want to get this done. And then those, excuse me, those issues are either, it's not doing what I want it to. Well, my choices over here that I can see are off track, on track, or done. And if it's off track, you can go over here to this side and you can create an issue. And I'll just do that for the sake of this meeting. And like I said, I'm really messing around in the meetings that my board, I might get in trouble for it, but it keeps life interesting. Okay, so I'm going to say that's off track. But this is where, and you really should have some things in your school, you really should have some things where you're not just solving every problem as it comes up. You should be looking out ahead and say, what do we want to change? We want to write a mission and vision for our school, let's say. Well, you're not going to get that done in a week's time or 10 weeks' time. You're not going to get that done between one meeting. So set a goal, assign somebody to be primarily responsible for it. Or maybe we want to just change out all the playground equipment at some point. It's getting old, it's unsafe. Somebody needs to start budgeting, planning, set some goals. All right, moving on. Metrics. If you don't measure something, you can't fix it. If you don't measure something, it can't grow. Dwayne had a class on accountability. You want to be accountable? Set yourself some accountability things. And again, this is not a current meeting, so bear with me, there's some things that are, but some things that we measure, and there's actually a meeting that our staff has that rolls up. So everything that they put in their meeting comes into our meeting. And so we get to see parent contacts. We get to see how So Jacob here, now I don't want to edit the measurable. I guess you can see my mouse. Yeah. Parent context, we want it to be more than once a week. The average is 1.82 for this individual person. We want our teacher morale. They score themselves on this. Average of 3.59, 1 to 5. So we get to see the things that we want to track. And we track our teachers a lot. So don't necessarily look at this as gospel. This is what we do. But you need to track some things. So we're currently tracking the grade average across our whole school. What is happening for our whole school grade average? We have a goal that we want it to be, and I'm not sure what it is. The one that I have in here is 85%. So I think I was just adding some test things in here. But pick a goal. Maybe your overall school average, maybe there's a class that's struggling, and we want to see them bump up. And we have a teacher, we want to, maybe from the last thing, we have a teacher that's just not being quite strict enough and allowing some things. So, maybe you record how many times that the other teacher felt like things weren't the way they should be. And instead of just texting you every week, she's reporting this at a board meeting saying, hey, there was 10 times in this past month that things were out of line. So we put 10 up there. Our goal is to have it down to 5 or less that are out of line. Something, just measure something. What are the things that you need to know about? Headlines. Pay attention to, sometimes it's easy in board meetings, especially when you have them every 10 weeks or every month, it's easy for the same people to keep coming up, the same students, the same teachers, month after month, and everybody just gets used to it. You need to start tracking what's coming up. And you should be tracking the good things and you should be tracking the bad things. And this is something that can be done ahead of time. You can ask your teachers to give you an update. You put it in here so that at board meeting it's all ready. You can just read down over the things that were this individual student just continues to be a problem, let's say. Or maybe you have a headline that there was another teacher in school that's just pulling their weight. They are really doing well. And then over a 3 or 4 month period, you can look back at the archives of these. Now I want to see what the people headlines have been for this last school year. And you see time and time again, the other teachers are talking about this individual teacher that's doing really well. You need to pay attention to that. And if that's somebody you need to make sure they stay in your school, and it's somebody that you need to support, maybe they need a raise, whatever it is, you need to pay attention to the things the good things, and maybe the bad things. Maybe you're just like, every board meeting we are talking about this teacher. It's probably not somebody we need to rehire. Whatever it is, pay attention, and if you record the headlines, what you record you can measure. Okay, so if you get all your to-dos done, it congratulates you. And we're going to get to to-dos again in a minute. But go back to my conversation earlier about everyone needs to participate. When you close out a meeting, everybody should have some things to do, unless you just don't have a lot to do in your school, right? But if there's something that needs to be done, don't load it all on the chairman or don't load it all on the secretary. Hand out the jobs. Give everybody something to do, and then hold them accountable to get it done. And if you have a list, like I said, technology records it right there. And you'll see here in a minute, we're actually going to build the to-dos when we get to the issues list. So when you're solving issues, when you solve an issue, it needs to go down to somebody's got to do something. If you just talk about problems, they just keep being problems. But if you can identify the problem, and that's what IDS, which is, they call it issues here, but identify, discuss, and solve. You need to identify the issues in your organization, and you need to discuss them, and you need to solve them. You don't need to keep talking about the same problems over and over and over again. If you can't solve it, then pass it on to somebody who can solve it. Maybe it's an issue that the church needs to deal with. Pass it on to the church. Don't keep trying to solve it in your board meeting. Anything that goes in this list should be something that can be done before next board meeting. And if you have people that come to board meetings without their to-dos done, then that needs to be an issue. Either they're not capable of doing what you're asking them to do, and they just need to be a silent member on the board, that's acceptable. The church put them there, you gotta use them, right? But maybe they don't need a whole list of to-dos to do. Or you've assigned something to them that's way too big to get done, and it was unrealistic, and you need to look at that and maybe create an issue out of it and say, we need to break this down in bite-sized pieces. You should not come to board meeting with stuff not done. And if that means that the Dwayne Wadle of your group needs to call 2 days before the board meeting and say, hey, can you take a few minutes to get your to-dos done before board meeting? Whatever it is, but you just need to get stuff done, because if you're not getting stuff done, what are you doing? You're just showing up and talking. So then you have your issues list. So come prepared. If you have something like this and everyone has their own login, then when you think about throughout the month or throughout the 10-week period, when you think of something, just go and write it down. Don't try to just remember, when you come to board meetings, oh shoot, what were we going to talk about? Like, what were the issues? Everybody just kind of says a blank stare, like, what do we need to address? Like, what needs to be fixed around here? Like, what do we need to do? Don't do that. Give your teachers a place to record things. I need this solved. Like, this is a problem for me. Okay, we'll put it on the list. We'll talk about it. And, well, you never get to my stuff. This solves a lot of those problems. It gives a platform. Get your details together. So if I click on this one here, there's a place here where you can write in. And this actually is the one that I dropped down, right? So it's the week of 129-23. Leland owned it. It was marked off track. That's why it's down here. This is an issue that we need to deal with. Why is this off track? Why can't we get this done? And Leland might have marked this off track before the meeting, and he comes in here and he writes a whole list of things. We don't need to spend. Another thing about getting your meetings done on time is come prepared. Bring as much stuff to the table done already as you can. And it might just be stuff that needs to be talked about. That's fine. But if you can do your research and if you can come prepared with some research, do that by all means. Save everybody the time of trying to explain everything. You can write it down in a few succinct words. Everybody can read it. We all know what's going on. Now we can help make a decision. And like I said, pay attention to adding stuff when it comes up, not at the meeting going, oof, what are we going to talk about today? There is a place here, before we start this section, for us as a board, before we start this section, does anybody else have anything that they want to add? Is there any issues that are not on this list? We can add it right here. And then we assign, who brought it up, but the leader, the chairman, or whoever's leading the meeting can add it in here. But we can say, here again, you can't see my drop-down menu. But you can assign which board member that goes to. You can add some details. Anybody have any issues that they want to add them. You don't want to be halfway through the meeting, oh, I forgot, we need to talk about this. Get it down on the list right now. Get it on the table. Now we know. We have this whole list of issues to get done. And it's 10 minutes till 12. We have 10 minutes to solve all those issues. Okay. Obviously in 10 minutes we're not going to solve that many issues, so we pick the most important ones to me. Okay? And anybody in our meetings, anybody can call it. I want to talk about that. That's important. We need to make sure we get that one done. Okay? So it realigns them up to the top, and then we talk. And we
point out that you can't choose more than 3.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, 3 at a time. Yeah, if I would click on another one, it would just say, hey, solve these first. And that keeps you organized, keeps you focused, and hopefully we can solve these 3. Okay? So it might be, and this is more in business, but this button here, and again, I don't think it's doing what it should on you. That's move an issue to another meeting. We can't solve this problem. This isn't for us. There's nothing we can do about this. This needs to go to the pastors. This is a home that's just out of whack. there's something going on. The school's not going to solve this problem anytime. We just need to have a meeting with the pastors and ask them to take over. Or you can
Or push over to the administrators, who might have another meeting in this software.
So in our case, this is a place. Often, this is how we get some of our issues. Is that the teachers team, they have their own meeting and they might say, we can't solve this. This needs to go to the board, and they'll kick that and it'll show up. All their notes, everything will show up. So, yes. Did you have more to say on that? I don't want to sit here and try to. You can create a to-do, or sometimes, I don't want to get too bogged down in the software. There's a ton of tools here, but I'm basically just showing what we do. This is how we systematically work through things. But if you follow these same ideas of a systematic way to solve problems, hit the same things, have an agenda, stick to it, give yourself some time limits, and then this is where you're going to identify, and you need to talk about the issues. Why is this a problem? What is the root cause? Why is this coming up? And identify what really is going on. And sometimes if you talk for just a minute, you'll realize that the issue at hand is maybe not really the issue. This teacher just can't seem to get whatever we want her to do done. Well, maybe she's overloaded, maybe she has personal issues, maybe there's some things in her home community or whatever. What really is going on here? And you identify what the real problems are, you discuss those problems, and then you bring a solution. All right, so one of the to-dos out of this theoretical conversation about this young lady is that we're going to assign somebody, maybe Dave. Dave, I want you to call her home preacher and let's open some communication lines around what's going on here. We need somebody to kind of take responsibility for this. And so there's a to-do for Dave. Call Brother Smith at the faith congregation or whatever it is. And that's his to-do. And that needs to be done by the next time you come to a board meeting, because this needs to happen. And we might have another to-do for the chairman to follow up at the next meeting, or you might go ahead and create something for someone to bring some solutions to the next, whatever. It's a little hard in these hypothetical situations, but you get my point. You need to create something that has happened out of this, and there needs to be a takeaway that we can do to solve these problems. And sometimes when you're identifying an issue, you need to look back. And this is, we have a manual, a handbook. And so when you're solving problems, you need to make sure that whatever solution goes into your handbook or your manual, solve it permanently. Figure out a way to get that information somewhere where that you can't keep coming back up to board meetings. And whatever that is, if it's not a handbook, maybe it's a list of things that we've solved before. You know, this happened and this is how we fixed it and it seemed to work. And you keep that running list, boards, coming up, future boards, they can go back and look at all the things that have been done before. But when you solve it, put it somewhere where it can stay solved. And then the other thing I want to say is stay on that issue don't try to get this whole list done. Stay on that issue until it's done. And if that takes all evening, it takes all evening. That's what it is. And maybe, we're going to call a meeting halfway between the 10-week session just so we can get caught up. Whatever it is, but don't just rush through and try to make some haphazard decisions. Solve your problems. Come up with some things that people can do. And then there needs to be a wrap up. You need to talk about, okay, Dave, you were going to do this. Lee, you were going to do this. Leland, you were going to do this, right? Everybody's aware of that. And then in this cascading message, here again, maybe there's some feedback that needs to go back to the teachers, kind of like we heard about in the last session. And you're going to go talk to that teacher, right? Yeah. Okay. And then rating system, and this is, again, this is software specific. But the whole point of this software is that you have meetings where everybody feels like they was well worth their time to be there. And so you have to rate every meeting so that if your meeting ratings are down, you got to stay on point. You can't get sidebars, you can't get distracted and talk about other things at the wrong time. Get your stuff done, make sure you're meeting. And the goal is to have a 10 out of 10 meeting so that you know, or the leaders know that the meetings are actually being beneficial. All right, so end on time. And I am running out of time. I have a few other notes, but I would like to hear from you because we just have a few minutes left in this class. What are some things that I missed, something that you think is important, should be in a board meeting? Any comments that you have? Yes.
I guess just one clarification. That 10 weeks would be scheduled PTA meetings now. Sometimes depending, we might have a meeting or even maybe 2 board meetings in between if the need arises.
Gotcha.
But as a general, sometimes it don't happen in between. There's other times it might happen once or twice. It just
Makes sense. Thanks for the clarification. Anything that I missed that you feel like should be a part of a good board meeting?
How much time do you have in this whole thing? How much time are the teachers there?
So
Or do you just have maybe the head teacher there? What do you-
So we do it every other time. This meeting, we don't use this meeting anymore simply because we changed the format to, we have our admin team. We've kind of transitioned as a school to we're more of an admin run school. And so we put a lot of responsibility down on our administrative team. That
The counterpart being that the board is a governance board.
we're more of a governance board. And so our meetings are around direction of the school, big picture things and that kind of thing. And so when we do meet with the admin team, they're there for most of the meeting. And then every other meeting, we have all the teachers there, and they have to give a report in that check-in session. And then obviously it's not 5 minutes. We let them talk as long as they want to talk every other meeting. And so there again, these timeframes don't really work on a monthly scale because it takes, you have 3 or 4 teachers and they want 5-10 minutes each to just talk about what's going on. And then our admin team is there and they're held accountable for things. And in our joint meeting together, they act just like anybody else on here. They have to-dos out of issues. They get to talk into issues. They get to, they don't really vote on things. But
So
if
you
it's
have an admin team and then you have a board.
the school board is separate.
So you have.
So there's 3 people on our admin team.
Okay.
And they're full-time teachers.
Oh, that's what you call the admin team.
Right.
Oh, I thought it was another.
Sorry. No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Those are our full-time teachers that are, and we've handed over quite a bit of the responsibility for problem solving and a lot of things that a traditional board of a smaller school would handle, they handle. And then we tend to try to focus on big picture things, direction.
And the guardrails, giving them very clear structure and guardrails within which to make decisions. So a lot of those decisions they can make if they have their boundaries set.
Obviously, that doesn't work for a smaller school. If you have 2 teachers, they're not going to be their own governance body, right? You have to be. So it's not a fair assessment across all schools. It's just how we do it. I'm a firm believer the person closest to the problem should solve the problem. And so it's kind of the reason we went that direction, amongst many other things. Any other questions or comments that you have? That little sound means that you're over time on this issue. So I was supposed to wrap up in 5 minutes, and so if your chairman's just droning on about, and you're like, it's time to go home, like that sound goes off, hey, and you really should have somebody pick the most punctual, difficult person on your team and give them the authority to say, hey, we're off topic.
Point out that pendulum button.
Oh, yeah, see, they even give them a button. Hang on.
Over on the left side underneath. The big button underneath.
Oh, yeah, sorry, right here. Hang on. I'm left button, there you go. So they can do that. So it's kind of,
That's really annoying.
so Aaron and I we were talking about this young lady and her issues, and we kind of, well, you know, her parents are kind of that way, and pretty soon we're talking about the Yoder family, right? Well, that doesn't have anything to do with the issue that we have at school, right? Like, we need to stay on topic here, and so that person we need to solve this. They can hit that button. Okay, yeah, you're right. Let's leave the Yoder family alone. Let's get back to what we're going to do about this young lady's inability to stay focused in her teaching. So again, it's just something that software. We're running out of time, and y'all aren't talking, so I'm just going to point out a couple more things. Like I said already, make sure that everyone participates. If you have a quiet board member, ask them questions. What do you think about this? Give them to-dos. Make sure that they participate. Solve problems for the long run, and don't allow problems to keep festering. If you have a problem, talk about it, solve it. Everybody agrees on it, the board's unified, and put it to rest. Don't allow it to just keep coming up. If you have a teacher that keeps trying to bring it up, like I enjoyed that discussion earlier, but you need to create a solution. These are the rules for the joint space that the board set in place. This is the way it's going to be, and then the board holds that both teachers accountable to those rules. Stop tattling on the other teacher. Let it alone. We're going to take care of this, and that problem is solved. Don't text us anymore. Stop texting us. If you feel like there's an issue, bring it up at the board meeting that there was 5 infractions this month, and there should have been 1, or there was 20 infractions and there should have been 5. Whatever you solve it, put it to rest. Don't allow things to keep festering. Any other comments before we close?
Is there a place, like if you work through an issue and you try to get some direction, to ask at the next meeting, how is this going? Is that proper setting for?
It's very proper. Goes back to
Not just to bring up, garbage, just to know where we can in this area.
But there again, if you feel like the need, then I would put it in some sort of measurable. Some way that you can know some definite that person can do. And then track it in your measurables. Were you able to do this 5 times this? Did it happen more than once since we met last? Give them something that's not just, how do you feel like it's going? Because then you run the risk of having people, oh, everything's fine. Oh yeah, I'm working on it. Like, you need some way to measure whether it's actually happening or not. Because it is a common problem with boards to just assume everything's going okay because nobody's saying anything. And everybody's like, oh yeah, they talked about it at the board meeting, nothing changed. And you need to avoid those kinds of problems. Make them measurable. You can drop the measurable next year or even toward the end of the year. This isn't a problem anymore. Why are we measuring this? Okay. It is lunchtime, so thank you for your participation.